Jesus only gave authority to men. Can't deny that. I can deny that, actually, because it is false. That's not true. Does Jesus know that he only gave authority to men? Because there's not a single place anywhere in the Gospels where he says that, or even insinuates, or kind of backhandedly implies that, or even where he behaves in a way that would lead you to the conclusion that that is what he thinks. In fact, he actually spent his entire earthly ministry doing the exact opposite and teaching the exact opposite and setting the example for the exact opposite. Jesus had female disciples. In a time where you were not even allowed to be alone with a woman if you were a man, Jesus had female friends and he had female disciples. And a lot of people kind of want to act as though Jesus only had 12 disciples because the 12 are the ones that we hear about in our Sunday school classes. But Jesus had way more than that. The Gospels tell us that he would send out disciples in teams of 2 to go and minister and do miracles and all of that kind of jazz. And their number was 70 or 72, depending on the manuscript that you're reading. But Jesus had at least 70 or 72 disciples, if those numbers aren't symbolic, which they probably are. But Jesus had a lot of disciples. Of the disciples were women. And the women disciples were the ones who funded his entire ministry. Jesus' entire earthly ministry was funded by the female leaders that he sought out and appointed. If it was not for the leadership of women that Jesus set up on purpose, then Jesus wouldn't have an earthly ministry because they provided for his bodily human needs. They funded the ministry. Jesus' female disciples. Also, the first ever missionary was a woman. Jesus sought out the Samaritan woman at the well as the first person that he would ever tell the truth of, I am the Messiah. She's the first person who got to hear the full extent of who Jesus is and what he was on earth to do. And she turns around and as a missionary carries that message to the people of her town. You think she only told the women and the children? No, she was telling the men because she was telling everybody. Jesus sought her out on purpose. He could have chosen anyone to be the first missionary and to carry that message, but he appointed a woman to do it. He appointed a woman to do it. Also, the first sermon of the gospel was preached by Mary Magdalene, who also Jesus sought out specifically and wanted to carry that message specifically. And he told her expressly and explicitly, hey, go preach this to men. Because the men are hiding because they didn't come to the tomb. You did. You did, girl. Now go and preach to the ones who are hiding. She was specifically told to go and share the message with men. And people will try to diminish what she did and label it something other than what it is. They'll say, oh, that wasn't a sermon. Oh, that wasn't preaching. Oh, that wasn't leadership in the church. She was just sharing a testimony. Anyone can share a testimony. No, that was the first message of the gospel. When Peter stands up at Pentecost and shares his experience of God and starts talking about Jesus, people will often label that as the first sermon of the gospel, but it's not, because Mary Magdalene did the exact same thing earlier, and people just put a different name on it because they don't want to acknowledge the fact that Jesus empowered a woman to be the first leader of the Christian church. But that's what he did. That's what he did. And that's what he did his whole ministry over and over again. Jesus empowers women. Jesus raises women up to be equals. Jesus raises up women to have authority equal to men. Jesus raises women up to have power in ministry equal to men. He does it all the time. And I know where this thinking comes from, right? Because I've read the letters that we attribute to Paul. Like, there are arguments that could be made from other parts of the Bible. I don't think they're very good arguments when you take into mind the context of the scripture and the character of God. Like, I think that they all fall apart pretty much immediately. But you could make an argument if you pull from the epistles, if you pull from the letters that we attribute to Paul. But don't say that Jesus said that, because Jesus never did. And frankly, I don't think Jesus is very happy with the way that we disparage and diminish and treat the women that he set up to be leaders. I don't think that Jesus likes the way we talk about Mary Magdalene. I don't think he likes the way that we rearrange her story to be so that she's something other than what she is. Because Jesus called her out by name and made her a preacher. I don't think Jesus is a fan when we diminish women and when we claim that it's his will we do so. Jesus didn't say that.